with that, we're going to move into another review. We're going to be talking about a movie that came out on Netflix. This brings back two what I would call really big name actor actress combo, which everyone's probably heard of before. If you've ever seen a movie here in the US, even if you haven't, you might still recognize these names. We're talking about Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon coming together for a rom-com on Netflix called Your Place or Mine. Now, Your Place or Mine is it's a little bit of an interesting rom-com because if you're ever here in the US, you'll hear people talk about how West Coast is this way, East Coast is that way, and there's all these, cultural differences with where you're placed within the US.
But if
California is a
cultural
little,
differences are true, don't you think
and
so? You lived everywhere. You tell me.
I can see some definite differences between West Coast and the Midwest. East Coast, I'm pretty unfamiliar with, but I will say there is this laid back nature of California, versus the East Coast. East Coast has a very, what I would call traditional way of, living, and
Doing
California
everything in
is
black and white.
exactly, and California is just do whatever you want. So we see a lot of that here in this film, Your Place or Mine, because they're two, people of love interest here, Ashton Kutcher and Reese Witherspoon. Reese Witherspoon, her character lives in LA. She's kind of, the hippie type, free spirited type. And Ashton Kutcher lives this life in New York where, he's kind of on the opposite end. He's very, business attire, I wouldn't say preppy, but lives in a Manhattan flat. He's that kind of guy. He's not the LA, free spirited type. The movie talks about, how these two talk to each other every day. Despite being on the opposite side of the country, they had a one night stand 20 years ago. It keeps kind of popping in here and there, little remnants of how that came to be and who they were then. But they're never really in the same frame for most of the movie. What this movie is very different compared to most, types of rom-coms is they're not together for most of it, as I just said. In fact, the whole premise of this movie is that Debbie, who's played by Reese Witherspoon, needs to be in Manhattan for a week. But her backup child sitter bails on her, and she needs someone to watch her kid. Well, now her friend Peter, who's played by Ashton Kutcher, he volunteers to play the mom for the week, and actually allows Reese Witherspoon's character Debbie to go stay in his flat while she does what she needs to do in Manhattan. So they swap locations. He goes, watches over this kid that he's never really met. And I mean, it's just interesting to see their dynamic because you could tell these two won't make good roommates. They probably wouldn't, I don't know what they would be like as parents, but they couldn't really function, just as a couple, let alone.
So I have to tell you, not a lot of rom-coms do people in their, 40s. This is a story of people in their 40s because obviously they met 20 years ago, so they're well into their 40s. Son is old, son is 13. And after the one night stand, they moved on with their lives, but apparently they've held a torch for each other, but they don't name it, right?
Yeah.
So what I absolutely loved about the movie was that there is no chemistry between the two because they're never on the same. They're not 99% of the movie. They're on two different coasts, and they're doing their own stuff. Ashton Kutcher is taking care of the kid. His character is Peter, and he's taking care of the kid, and she is going to school. And over there, she meets people, and she has her own love life going on with those people. So it's a very improbable, fast get together in the last 5 minutes kind of a movie.
Yeah, it's very weird. I don't think this plot would ever really be a real scenario in the real. I mean, most rom-coms aren't necessarily those real type of scenarios, but we're talking about here a situation in which not only do these two never see each other in person, but then this guy goes and takes care of a 13-year-old kid for a week. She goes to New York and has fun while she's in school. It's very interesting, and like you said, the chemistry between them is I would honestly say just kind of awkward, which makes it kind of funny to watch. But yeah, I mean, as you said, there isn't real chemistry in between them. But as you guys know, this is a rom-com, so you can imagine what probably is going to end up happening there in the end. And if you're really curious on how that actually ends up happening, I would head over to Netflix and give this a check. It's just really interesting to see both actors, kind of what some people would say out of their prime. Ashton Kutcher is no longer his that 70s show self and all those other types of rom-coms. But you know what? He still rocks the screen. He still looks for
there's a point in time in the movie I thought Reese Witherspoon brought in her entire Reese's book club conversation. And it just, if you don't know, she runs something called Reese's Book Club, and she recommends books to all her members all the time. And there's this entire story of her meeting with a publisher, and then she's so crazy about reading books that she's read even the books that they didn't sell. Like the guy said he sold one copy of the book, and she said she'd read it. So
yeah.
You can only imagine how she vehemently puts in her marketing two tones there. But Michael, I thought I don't know about you, but I thought I missed the spark totally. I wish they could cast Mila Kunis with Ashton Kutcher, because nobody can beat their chemistry, really.
It's just a weird one. I think these two are very good at their jobs, and if they could have cooked up a rom-com in which would have allowed them to actually be in the same frame together for most of the movie, I think it could have been a little different. I wouldn't underestimate what both of these actors can do, when they are in their 40s, and not in their 20s. I definitely think
we're totally happy with watching mature rom-coms, definitely, but you know how to take a story and just square a circle for our benefit. And I thought that's what they were doing. And the AI glow that they have to the faces is
yeah, exactly. And that piece of technology is getting better and better. So it's going to be very interesting to see here in the next few years.
And by the way, we forgot to tell our viewers and listeners why we ended up reviewing it in the first place. We actually reviewed it because the music is by Siddharth Khosla, who is a Desi. So There we go.
Yep. And we're going to wrap up the review here. We hope you guys enjoyed our show. We give you guys the best reviews every week. Just as a little recap, we had 5 different reviews that we went over. We went over Farzi, which was on Amazon Prime, Shiv Shastri Balboa, the Rocky Balboa, type of little twist out in theaters. Go pack the theaters. They need all the support. We reviewed Veda, which was on Z5. Then we talked a little bit of extra reviews that we threw in there. Everything Everywhere All at Once and Your Place or Mine, Prime Video and Netflix respectively. I highly recommend you guys go read our reviews. Go check out Daisies.live to be able to read all the reviews before this show comes out. We try and give you the review so you don't have to watch it, but highly recommend that you guys go watch, see what you think for yourselves, and let us know. We read all your comments. We read all everything. So hit our Twitter. It's Daisy's Live on Twitter, Daisy's Live on Instagram. But until then, we are signing off.